Curiosity podcast. If it is your first time here, I'm so glad that you are here. If you're a repeat listener, I think you are in for a fantastic treat. I've never had a herbal hair healer on the show before, and I've got dear Jennifer Ross here, and I'm so excited to share her work with you, share not just her work with hair, but her philosophy around slowness and pulling away from, I guess the ways in which we've all been kind of trained and conditioned to be productive humans in the world. And she and I have had many conversations around this. And during our last conversation, I was just like, man, I wish we had had the mic on. So this is what we're doing. We're having the mic on, and we are going to talk about the medicine of slow, the medicine of being intentional and conscious with each action that you take. And so I'm so excited to share Jennifer with you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! So I've given folks a bit of your introduction just through the bio, but I think in your particular case, I would love for you to give us a sense of what your journey has been like, because I think, I don't know anybody who hasn't had their hair cut. And so we all are familiar with sitting in the salon chair. That experience is like. And I think let's start with just getting a more nuanced, more full story of what this journey has been like for you.
Wow. Well, there's been many twists and turns. But I grew up in the salon environment in my family, a family of hairdressers, my grandmother and her shop, and then I became a hairdresser, and I worked in very fast-paced, high-end, like luxury salons in San Francisco. And I wanted to make it, right? I wanted to be successful. I wanted to make money. I wanted to be a top hairdresser in my field. And so what do? You work really hard. You stay long hours. The system is very deeply ingrained in dysregulation. You don't get breaks. And I mean, when I think back about it, it's like, unless you were a cigarette smoker, you didn't get a break. And I would be jealous of those people, actually, because I want a break, but I'm not going to start smoking. So you worked really hard. You go through your apprenticeship program. You're very abused, actually, during this time. And then finally, you're a stylist or a colorist, and you get to take your own clients, and then you continue to be abused, and then you kind of perpetuate the abuse with the new assistants and train them the way you were trained, and it continues to be this cycle of toxic salon culture. You're overworked, you're double booked, you're not eating, you're drinking, but you're in between clients, you're eating food while you're mixing chemicals in this back room, which is just horrific, actually. And then you can work your way up the ranks to be head of department. So I was head of department and teaching and training all these assistants and pushing them in the way that I was pushed. And yet I still wasn't enough. I'm at the top position, yet I'm not fast enough. I'm not doing enough clients. I'm not accommodating enough for people who are super late, or want more from me when my schedule won't allow it. I'm never enough. So you're just in this cycle. You just keep working, and you don't know any better, really. Then I get pregnant. Then I'm mistreated during my pregnancy because I can't work enough. And I'm going to take maternity leave, and was very mistreated during that time, which is just awful. And I come back from my maternity leave and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. There is another way. And that was the first step that I took, leaving that environment that basically they scare you, like you can't leave. If you leave, you're going to lose all your clients. No one's going to follow you. It's over for you. You have to stay. I leave. I rent my chair. Most of my clients follow me. I decide, I've been hearing a lot about these like lower tox colors. I decide like I'm going to switch my chemicals to something that seems healthier. So I do that, and I work in a salon that's got like a big garage door, so there's like fresh air all the time, and I'm like, okay, this is good. And then I keep learning more and more and more about how these chemicals really work, what they actually are. You have these product reps that come in and they teach you how to use the product, but nobody tells you or teaches you about real chemical safety. Mm-hmm. And there's no disclaimers. Actually, these companies, it's like the color industry is grandfathered into the FDA, and there's not regulation. So the only regulation happens when people get hurt. So when chemical burns are happening, and then they just change like the directions. They don't actually change the chemicals in the products. And lots of people were getting sick and allergic. So these new companies came out with different ingredients that have been studied less than the ones that are making people sick. What they've come to find out is that chemical sensitivities usually come from prolonged exposure. So the new chemicals are eventually going to be damaging too, which 10 years later I experienced. After about a 10-year span of using these lower tox color lines, I became sick. And I just kept pushing it aside because it was like what I did for a living, right? I was just like, oh, I just didn't eat enough. I'm working too much. I'm going to shift. At this point, I have opened my own salon in San Francisco, and I've shifted how I work. I've stopped double booking. I'm charging by the hour. I've gone gratuity free. Big, and those might seem like not that big of a deal, but for our industry, those are radical shifts. To not double book, to stop taking gratuity, to charge my worth and say, I'm not gonna maybe get gratuity, like base my worth on what I might get from other people, let them decide what I'm worth.
Sure.
And then I took a big vacation and I came back and I was like, oh, I'm not feeling good, but I have to keep working. And I just wasn't feeling well, and I wasn't feeling well. And then COVID happened. I didn't work for 8 months because salons were closed in San Francisco. I went back to work for 1 week, and then they closed again for a couple more months. So it was like almost a year of closures. That 1 week back in the salon, I was so sick again. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So then I had a little bit more time off. I've moved to Portland, Oregon, and I thought, gosh, can I even work again? Can I even do this? Can I do hair? I can't work in a salon. Then I start interviewing, and I just start going in, and I just don't feel good every salon that I'm going in. And then it becomes clear that I'm also struggling with a sensitivity to essential oils. And all of these organic, low tox products in the salon have essential oils in them instead of fragrance. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, now I'm allergic to even essential oils. Like, how does one work in this industry when you can't use any of the products that are available? And then I met this woman, Chelsea, and she's like, I'm teaching herbal hair care. And I was like, what even is that? And so I started studying with this woman, Chelsea, and who's an amazing mentor, a hairdresser turned herbalist, but still really wanted to be working within the hair world. For the hairdressers, really, like to show them another way, to like teach people there's something else out there. And so I studied with her, and I never looked back. I learned all about how you can use herbs and clays and 100% natural products to not just wash your hair, but to really heal the scalp. And beyond, like hair brushing is a big part of it, which has become a huge thing for me through doing it myself and through adopting this hair brushing practice, daily, nightly practice for myself. It brought all this remembering for me. Remembering how my grandma, my mother would brush my hair at night. And how co-regulating that was before we would go to bed. How gentle it was. How safe it felt to be groomed by this other person. And so that just really got my juices flowing and showed me I could do it a different way. I started working at a private studio in Portland. And now that's what I do. I offer private sessions. A new client appointment is 2 hours for a haircut. Return clients are an hour and a half, but depending on your hair type, it might be 2 hours every time. You come in, we do a little bit of grounding together. I brush your hair to get us co-regulated. I have a consultation. I do herbal hair cleansing at the shampoo bowl. I don't use any conventional products in the salon. And it's really beautiful. And I'm finally, I shouldn't say finally, because I used to have a lot of clients that I really loved. But in this moment where I'm at, I'm really getting clients that are my dream clients, that want what I have to offer, want to be cared for in the salon, don't want to go into a salon that's hectic and stressful with loud music and lots of people. They want to come in, they want someone to see them. And sometimes they don't even know that they're coming into this. They don't know that this is what they want, but they come in and tell me, I didn't even know this kind of salon experience was possible.
Yeah.
I feel so safe. I feel so heard. Like, you're so gentle. Thank you for only taking that half an inch off. So many people have so much trauma from going and getting their hair done.
Yeah.
People don't listen to them. They don't hear them. They do whatever they want. The hairdresser becomes the authority. So there's this power dynamic that's not fair. And it's really amazing to me that I see this now and have transformed my business. I didn't think this was ever possible. And here I am.
Yay. I know, I was actually just telling my best friend Christina about your work. I had like a full day where I got to hang out with her this week, and she's like, how is that even a thing? I didn't know that was a thing. You know, somebody will, spend all this time with you and actually listen to you, listen to your needs. And you're right, at least I shouldn't project on other people, but I know that I personally have a lot of hair trauma, just in terms of going into places and people being like, oh, you've got kind of a big nose, and so if we do this with your hair, then, it'll make your nose look smaller, or you've got a really round face, and so let's cut these bangs in such a way that they frame your face. And it brought up all these insecurities that I had just because, we're all sort of conditioned to be really critical about our faces and our bodies in this world. And, what I'm hearing is not just a shifting in how you've changed your business practices and the products that you use, but the underlying deeper philosophies around beauty and how we relate to our own inherent natural beauty.
Absolutely.
So can you just riff on that for a little bit?
Yeah, so it's also been something I've had to break through because I was a perpetuator of that. So I've had a lot of imposter syndrome with shifting into this, because I told people, yes, you should do this. Yes, this will be more flattering. Yes, maybe your shoulders are too broad for that length of hair. Yes, it will be more youthful if you go blonder. This is not flattering. This will be more professional. I've said all of those things, and I definitely wasn't as harsh as like I would hear my coworkers who would just be really like, oh my gosh. But when people would say, I feel this about this, I would be like, yeah, you're right. That is like your least flattering feature. Let's do this to bring out your eyes. Your eyes are the best thing. Or, let's hide those eyebrows. You have a short forehead, or, just the list goes on. And I just really struggled to get through that and say like, well, because I had done all of that and been trained to do all of that, I know what not to do. Mm-hmm. And I know now that I don't want to be pointing out people's flaws. I don't want to tell you you can look more youthful. I want to help you see how perfect and beautiful you are right now. How everything about you is unique and flawless. And this system has made us so insecure about who we are, our magic, our beauty, the uniqueness. And I know that it is also true for men, but it is very big issue for women. And I've never had a man sit in my chair and be like, my nose is too big, or like these things, like give me a haircut that's gonna like be more flattering. Like, they're not always thinking about those things, but the women, and I want to see women accepting of themselves. I want to be on your team. I want to be cheering you on and reminding you of that beauty. If you want a certain kind of bangs, I'll give it to you. I'm not going to say like no. I'm going to direct you to the right bangs without perpetuating these like negative stories.
Sure.
And a lot of these stories, I mean, most of them, they're not ours. They were handed down to us by someone else. Someone else told us, your hair's too curly, your hair's too frizzy, your hair's too thin, your hair's too fine, you need to lighten your hair, you'll have more volume. Somebody else told us that. Because we thought we were beautiful.
Yeah.
Until someone told us something different. And I really feel that it's my calling now to really hold people and to really help them uncover, accept, and love themselves on a deep level.
Yeah.
And not to just be like, well, it's just vanity, it's just vain, right? Like, it's not. It's important. It's important that we're able to look at ourselves and say, I'm beautiful. I look like my mother, who was also beautiful. I look like my father or my grandmother. Like, we don't usually look at pictures of these other people and go, oh, look at her nose. We go, oh, look at how beautiful she is. Look how I love her so much. And I want people to look at themselves and really feel that love and go, I love my gray hair. I love where I am in life. I'm unique and I'm perfect just how I am. I don't need to cover my gray hair anymore. I don't need to hide who I am. I don't need to put on a bunch of makeup every day. A mask for the world.
And
Does that answer your question?
It does. And I think that this is where our work just intersects so beautifully because, you would not think business coach and herbal hair healer not having like a ton of intersectionality, but if there's anything that I can convey to my clients, it's you are perfect exactly as you are, permission to be yourself, and permission to build your business in the way that your energy, your nervous system, your story, your experience, your wisdom wants to carve that business out as, and I just know a little bit about you having slower energy than I am. I'm a manifesting generator. I think you're a projector.
I'm a projector, yeah.
Yeah. And so inherently there's going to be such different energies. But the permission here is build your business in the way that it feels the most right for you. I'll build my business in the ways that it feels the most right for me. But the guidance and the direction is, can you be yourself and accept yourself instead of trying to like pigeonhole yourself into the ways that society says that your business is supposed to look like. And I think that that's what you're doing in this particular area of our lives where it's so deeply needed. Like, we need that level of healing, because I know that for myself. I know that I grew up with a mother who told me I was beautiful, but she and I look very similar. Like, she was a young mother. We would go out to the mall and people would think that I was her sister, not her daughter. And she was so critical of her own body and of her own face and of how she styled her hair and you know, I couldn't help but grow up thinking, if she thinks that is so wrong, then I must also be wrong, you know? And so I have I think that this is a story that is interwoven in so many women's lives of trying to fit to particular standards. And, you know, the pandemic in so many ways was such a beautiful gift because I didn't have to wear makeup. I couldn't go out and dye my hair. And actually I had a little girl, this was before the pandemic, but I had stopped dyeing my hair on like a very regular basis before the pandemic hit. And I was sitting on the bus and she looked over at me and she was like, I just love the sparkles in your hair. Oh. And I had like no idea what she was talking about. And her mom was like, oh no, we don't say things like that to people. And then I realized that what she was talking about was like my gray haircut starting to come in. And that reframe of somebody small and just looking at the world through these like this pure lens, like saw beauty where those of us who are older are conditioned to see a flaw, you know? And it was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment because I was starting to think like, oh, I need to go back in and get my roots all touched up again. And, you know, that was the moment where I decided I was no longer going to dye my hair anymore. It's like, I don't know where that little girl is, who she is out there in the world, but like I needed to hear that from a 5-year-old because I wasn't able to get it from the people around me, you know. And so, you know, just this permission to be yourself is such a huge aspect of what we all need to be practicing in our own lives, but then also being able to ripple that out into our clients is such a huge, huge shift.
Children, they're so lovely and funny. I'm gonna share, it's kind of an opposite thing, but I'm very comfortable with my gray hair and not wearing makeup, like those things. I've been doing it for a while now that I'm just like, it's just fine. And but on the playground at my son Ziggy at his school, the little girl is like, are you Ziggy's grandma? I was like, no, I'm Ziggy's mom. But you have gray hair like a granny. And I was like, lots of women have gray hair, even when they're like quite young. But most people are coloring their hair. And she's just kind of looking at me and she goes, but you have a lot of wrinkles too. And I was like, everybody has wrinkles. It's okay. It's okay to have wrinkles. And, you know, I mean, I just thought to myself, like, I mean, I could be her grandma. Maybe her grandma is my age. You know, maybe her mom is young. My mom, like you said, my mom was very young and we got that same thing. Like, are you sisters? And, you know, I just the innocence and whatever she sees in her world. And I'm like, was totally not offended by it. And I laugh all the time because just, I don't know, the beauty and innocence of saying whatever is on your mind.
Yeah.
And they're so sweet. But yeah, I started letting my gray hair grow out a long time ago. And I had just had my daughter and I knew I had this, I mean, it's like 17 years old, I started getting this patch. And I was like, I need to grow my hair out before I'm like solid white so that I can see this patch. And I have a new baby and I don't know, I'm really busy. It's hard to get my hair colored and my hair is kind of short right now. So I'm just gonna let it go. And I don't know, I mean, that's like 14 years ago. And I've just never looked back. But I will say, I was renting a chair at that time. But when I would see my peers from the other like big salons I had worked at, the criticism, oh, they were very judgmental. And they would tell me, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Don't grow your gray hair out. That is, you should not do that. I mean, you're a color specialist. You need to be coloring your hair. And it was interesting. It made them so uncomfortable. It made them so uncomfortable. And that was really, I really see it as other people's insecurities.
Yeah.
Because they could never grow their hair. They could never accept that and do that for themselves. But I got a lot of criticism, and the pandemic, I loved that part of the pandemic, all the women growing their gray hair out. And I've seen like some women go back to coloring their hair after, but just so many women stopped.
Yeah.
And I mean, Instagram was the most amazing place to like watch these transformations over time. And I personally don't see it as something that's aging for women. But I also am not afraid of aging.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that happens to every person on this planet. And it's the one thing, it's like not okay to age.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've been, like, I feel like I'm just now getting to the age where I feel like I've always been my entire life.
Oh my gosh, right?
So I feel very happy about aging. But another part of the story that I want to highlight is your ability to, and I'm sure this took a lot of work, this isn't just a thing that switches overnight, but your ability to look at the ways in which we've always done things and decide I'm going to do something different. And I think this is going to go into this like talk about slowness and the importance of slowness. But I know that every single hairdresser I've ever been to has told me, come back in 6 to 8 weeks. And you posted on your Instagram, I think this was a couple weeks ago, where you're like, I haven't had my hair cut in 6 months, and I probably won't get another haircut for another 6 months. And it has, I don't know if you realized it, but like I've been sitting with that story for a little while now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how do we as practitioners create an artificial need where there doesn't need to be, And as somebody, like for me, like my hair goals are pretty simple. Like I like my hair long. I don't need a ton of styling. And even with those kind of like goals in mind, I've had every single hairdresser say, even if you are trying to grow your hair out, you should come in every 6 to 8 weeks so that you can get your split ends trimmed off. I see you roll your eyes.
It's part of that. It's capitalism, right? Mm-hmm. You and like scarcity, like I need to make sure you're coming back, and we're just trained to like do it that way. And I come up from the Fidel Sassoon background, right? So that's where my training is rooted. And I specifically trained as a color specialist and then moved into cutting later as like the chemicals really became a problem for me.
Yeah.
But I worked with other stylists who were cutting specialists. So we were departmentalized. And if you're familiar with like the Sassoon methodology, most of their haircuts are very strong and lots of bobs, right? And they just need to be clean all the time, like precision all the time. So it is, they're like, come back every 6 to 8 weeks, and they create like a scarcity with the clients, because it's like, if you don't book ahead, you're not going to be able to get in.
Yeah.
So you need to book before you leave. And maybe I'm so busy, you need to book your next 2 appointments. And for some people, I think maybe there's a little bit of truth, like come in periodically to get your ends like cleaned up. But most people are taking off too much hair when you do that. So then it takes forever to grow your hair out because you're getting too many haircuts. And, there's like, I don't know how widely this terminology is, but we call it dusting the ends. And it's literally like cutting like, an amount that's very like immeasurable, right? Like so tiny. And I would say that's mostly for people who have super, super fine hair that does break, or that are getting lots of color, which then makes their hair break. For your hair type, definitely you don't need to be getting your hair cut every 6 to 8 weeks, like twice a year, 3 times a year, maybe at most, because you want it long. You're not doing a lot of like heat styling. Somebody who does a lot of heat styling might need a little bit more frequent haircuts, but the hairdresser's always taking off more. Yeah. As a colorist now, when you get color, you start seeing the regrowth, right? And like my clients who had lots of gray, I mean, they would sit in my chair every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? I mean, they were a slave to this process, to this unattainable youthfulness. And I would have clients every 2 weeks. I mean, just like craziness. And I would start getting people to go longer and longer. I would even give people little like touch-up kits so they could just do it at home and like just do the part that they could see by themselves. Because I was like, I do not want to have you in here every 2 weeks. Like, it's crazy. Even every 4 weeks. It just started feeling really like not okay, not sane. But it's part of the system. It's just, but I
think that for me, when I think about it, it's like to give people the power to unhook from that capitalist sort of timeline and to give our clients their sovereignty back. Mm-hmm. We have to start thinking about what is the lowest effective dose.
Yep.
And so it's this balance between, yes, you as a practitioner, whatever it is that you do, it's important. But can your dose be the lowest effective dose, meaning like, what is that one question in my world? Like, what is that one question that you can ask that is then going to help that client figure some stuff out on their own? For you, it's like, what is that one session that is done every 6 months that's going to help just reestablish that relationship with their hair again? And how can we give them things to do in between to support themselves? Because quite frankly, like, I wasn't asking for advice, but I was sort of complaining to you on one of our chats that I've moved to Eastern Washington. It's a much drier climate than I'm used to because I've always lived on the coast. And my scalp was so damn itchy. Like, I was just driving myself crazy. I'm somebody who doesn't really wash my hair every day, but I found myself needing to wash my hair every day because it was so itchy. And you were just like, oh, it's simple. Like, spray some hydrosol on your hair before you go to sleep and brush your hair every night. And honestly, like, that has shifted my relationship to my hair. Like you were saying, like, I also have like old memories of being a child and being groomed by my mother. It has moved like some of the oil that sits just straight on my scalp down into my hair, and so now my hair doesn't get as many split ends as it used to. Not that it really did that much anyway. And like, such a simple thing. And so like, that's what like lowest effective dose does for a client, is it puts the power back in the client's hands, so that then you come in as a mentor, as a guide, as somebody who can support them, somebody who's walking more beside them on their journey, rather than telling them, oh, you need to be doing this because there's something wrong with you, there's something broken about you, you need to be coming in every 6 to 8 weeks because that is what is going to fill my needs. Like, it brings it more into a reciprocal relationship with your clients when you can think about what is the lowest effective dose for this particular person and their goals.
That was so beautiful. I mean, wow, I don't even know what to say. I'm just like soaking that up. It's really touched. I'm like, wow, that's what I do.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know more about people's hair than they do. I don't know more. I'm not the ultimate authority on you and your body and your hair. And I want to really help people take that back. I want you to come to me because I make you feel good. I want to help you take better care of yourself. But I want you to do it. I want you to take that power back. I want to disrupt the cycle of product companies, the beauty industry, controlling people's narratives. And like, that simple act of brushing your hair every night also eliminates, I think, this idea that only like the wellness industry can like make us feel good. That we actually can do this like very simple thing to ourselves every night. It's simple, but yet very profound. And there is no better conditioner for your hair than your natural oils. Your body knows exactly what to do. And that hair brushing also helps exfoliate your scalp, get that itchy kind of feeling gone, increase blood circulation to the scalp, feeds the root, the actual bulb of where the hair is growing under the skin, with more oxygen-rich blood. So your hair's growing stronger, healthier. You're totally calming yourself before bed, spreading all those like oils out so you don't feel so oily. There's a little more to it if somebody wanted to adopt like a full herbal hair care routine that helps the scalp not be overproducing oil. Because some people will say, well, my natural oil is not my best conditioner because my hair is like super oily. Well, most likely they're stuck in a cycle of over cleansing their hair. Over cleansing, or just a lot of the traditional shampoos cleanse away so much of the oil that then the sebaceous glands are in overdrive. Yeah. So they're constantly like producing oil. And when we can stop that cycle and we can then brush our hair and we use cleansers that just gently break away like dirt, conditioners that aren't coating the hair, and you're brushing your natural oils out. Oh, it's such a beautiful relationship with yourself and with natural products to care for yourself. And I kind of lost my.
No, but I think
I lost my train.
I want to hop in here because it's that relationship to self that is so important, right?
Yeah.
Because like I'll say that as I have a lot of energy, and I do a lot of things in a day, probably more so than most people. That's just how I'm wired, what my constitution is like. It's not something that I really want to, like, as part of accepting myself exactly as I am, like, this is a part of me that I have to accept about myself. And so it's easy for me to forget that, like, I need to take care of myself sometimes. And
oh yeah.
And so yeah, and since I've been doing this ritual, pretty much nightly for the last several months, my husband will notice when I'm not doing it. And so he will actually point out, hey, like, it's been a while since you've brushed your hair. Can I brush your hair for you?
Oh, that's so lovely.
And it's just such a nice way to, like, oh, this is a very, very basic, now it's a need. This is a very basic need of mine that I can give myself. And it's also a barometer of how well I'm checking in with myself now. If I don't have 10 minutes at the end of my day to brush my own hair, then something else in my life needs to shift. Because that ritual of brushing my hair now is now, I don't know, it's like as nourishing as a walk in the woods, or it's as nourishing as cooking a really slow meal, and so if we can start building in these rituals of slow and check-in and connection, then I don't know, I think it honestly just makes us better humans, and so that's why we should do it.
I agree with that. And at this point now, when I don't brush my hair before bed, like, I don't sleep as well. I really find, like, all night I feel sort of like tangled by my hair. And not that it's like literally tangled, but like I didn't brush away like the energy from the day. I didn't take time to touch and soothe myself. And my hair and the energy is just like swirling and still there through my night. And when I take that time, and sometimes I don't even spend that much time. Sometimes I'm literally just like, do it, Jen. Just brush your hair. Like, don't skip it. Like, just, and I don't rip through my hair ever, but sometimes I just do it quickly, and sometimes I spend 10 minutes. I spray the hydrosol. Maybe I put a few drops of mugwort oil around. I brush. I'm really tender. But I find no matter what I'm going to do, I just have to do it every night. And it helps me get in touch. It helps me release any feelings from the day. It helps me just get regulated and feel safe and cozy. I'm also a very big proponent of, which is separate from hair, but also about like touching your own body and taking time to care for yourself, is herbal body oiling. And so taking herbal infused oil, and whether you've getting out of the shower or you're just gonna go to bed or whatever, but like when you take some oil and you take the time to rub down your whole body with oil, you're transformed. You're like a whole different person than you were before you started. And that self-touch, it's just so liberating and so calming. And again, not waiting till somebody else can rub you down with oil, not waiting to go. I mean, massages are great. I love a massage. So I'm not saying like massages aren't like good for you, but it doesn't have to be an appointment that you go to. You can give yourself that. And so the hair brushing and the body oiling are two things that are very big in my life.
And it's, again, if we can sort of like pop this out into like deeper philosophies, in this world of capitalism where we are trained to think, oh, there's something off about me, or maybe even there's something wrong about me, and I'm going to go out there and look for it. And instead, can we look for these solutions within ourselves? And so, brushing your hair, like, how much does a hairbrush cost? I like splurged and bought like a $60 Boar's hairbrush. Like, how much does body oil cost? And for me, like I'll do a quick little plug here. I've been ordering my oils from Boreal Folk, and so they use herbs that they've foraged in the Pacific Northwest, and so it feels very close to the land that I live on. And so like there's ways in which we can connect to ourselves that doesn't require a huge investment and doesn't require you to go outside of yourself, outside of your own body, to go, cultivate, right? And again, if we're thinking about sovereignty, if we're thinking about giving the power back to our clients, how can we do this in such a way that, whatever it is that you're doing, because I know that folks who listen to this podcast are in all sorts of different, modalities. For myself, it's like, okay, can I ask the right questions so that you are finding the answers within yourself? Right? Can I be a reflective surface so that you can figure out and feel confident in the choices that you make in your business? And so I love that you've taken it on this level, and it's not threatening to you. Like, that's what I'm feeling into this moment is, I think that for a lot of us as practitioners, because we're raised in this environment of, I would also call that abuse. I came from a very similar sort of space. The medical industry is fucking rife with it. It can feel really threatening to be less important in your clients' lives, right? And actually what I'm hearing is this right relationship that you've forged where it actually feels good to be less important in your clients' lives.
And what's funny is I actually think it's the opposite. I actually think I'm even more important in their lives. Because also, I mean, people have respected me a lot in my career, but clients, but also there's a lot in a different era too, but like a lot of clients that were like, you're my service provider. And kind of like, because you accept gratuities, it's also this thing that people are like, oh, like a server or your hairdresser, or, your worth is also based on my gratuity and what I decide your worth is. And I value you, but you're my service provider. now I value my worth. I don't take gratuity. You don't get to decide what my worth is. And I'm in deep relationship with you.
Yeah.
I really care about you. You're not another client on my list of 10 clients today. And people have always told me, like, a lot, way TMI. Like, people really spill it in the salon, but now I'm also in a private setting. People really go deep with me. People really feel safe. I really create an environment and a speed, right? A slowness of safety. I also invite them in, and I do simple little like somatic exercises for them to get safe. And I feel more valued than ever before. Sometimes, and it's silly, but we talked about this, and I was keeping myself sort of the best kept secret, right? So I finally started a Google business thing and put myself out there and asked people for reviews. And I go and I read those reviews, and I'm just like, these people are talking about me. Look at what they've written about me. I'm just, wow. Look at what I'm creating. Look at these relationships. Look at this bond and the safety. And if I see you out in the world, we're excited to see each other.
Yeah.
I've started going on walks with one of my clients, and she came to me and it was like, no, we're gonna be friends. Actually, this relationship, it needs to be more than you just coming and sitting with me. Like, you came to me, and we're more than that. And I love all these clients that I'm having now. Every one of them. So I feel so seen by people. I feel so loved, even more than ever.
I think the difference there is that we're now in a place where we don't have codependent contracts with our clients.
Yeah.
There's a lack of enmeshment, and so there's a freedom in that. And the beautiful thing about you being yourself and you following, actually your body was screaming at you to stop doing that thing in your past life. And by you embodying who you are, not everyone's going to be your client.
No.
Not everybody is going to be okay with the way that you practice. But because you're upfront about how it is that you practice and what it is that you provide, the people who say yes, or even the people who are like, "Ooh, I'm kind of curious," are like your people, And so you don't have to conform to any sort of box or structure based on society's conditions, and it also liberates your clients from having to conform to those boxes and structures. And I think that is such a beautiful thing to celebrate. This is what happens when marketing works, right?
Yeah.
It's people self-select when they're a no.
And I'm just, for me, it's also a lot of freedom to have clients go longer, to have clients cut their own bangs, or to come for me for bang trim, or do all these things to care for themselves. And side note, I have a friend who has, during the pandemic, really started putting out lots of videos for people to cut their own hair at home. And a lot of people in our industry are very triggered by this. And that it's taking away from people coming into the salon, hairdressers are losing money because of this, and that she's making all this money on people buying, the video, the one-time video. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm like, yay. People are learning how to trim their own bangs, feel empowered to be like, oh, this piece is bothering me. Oh yeah, I have that video on how to cut. I'm just gonna do the thing. Customize it for themselves as they wear their hair every day. And I love it. I was not at all triggered by it. I was like, yes, thank you. More empowerment, more sovereignty, more self-care. That's less reliant on beauty industry, beauty professionals, wellness industry, all of this stuff. I love empowering people in their beauty and self-care. And yeah, I don't feel threatened. Yeah. Not at all. I don't even feel threatened if my regular client goes and sees someone else. Mm-hmm. I've always said the best thing that can happen is you go see someone else. Maybe you love them, but maybe you don't. Maybe actually it makes you appreciate me even more. It makes you value me even more. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Yeah. Totally. I don't get upset. We don't own people. Yeah. And you get to decide who you want to see.
Exactly. Yeah. And, people can decide how they want to be supported.
Yeah.
And maybe 1 month they feel like they need that stronger cut, or they just need to zip in and out because they're on their way to a party or something. But we all fulfill different aspects of a client's lives, and there's that codependency, that enmeshment piece is, and I think that's what I was trying to convey with the word of importance, is when we allow ourselves to be in right relationships with people, then we allow them to make decisions for themselves. And lo and behold, it might mean that they come see you less. But that's okay when you are in a relationship of reciprocity with somebody. I feel like we've been talking about hair, but what we're really talking about is social stuff, like these deeper underlying patterns. And one of the things that I feel really compelled to name here, and I feel a little bit like I'm in your salon chair here, but I grew up in California, so I don't feel like I've had a lot of experiences of direct racism in my life. I lived in places where people are more or less accepting, but now that I'm sort of thinking through past experiences and why I've had resistance to even getting my hair cut sometimes, is I feel like the biggest pieces of racism that I've experienced has been in the salon chair. Because my hair, as you sort of pointed out, is thick. It is not just thick in each individual strand is thick, but I have a lot of it as well. And
yeah.
The thing that people do when I sit in their salon chairs is they run their hands through my hair and they say, oh my gosh, this is so thick, we're gonna have to thin this out. And I'm thinking now in this framework of what is our ideal standard of beauty, and how do I not fit that standard of beauty with my thick hair, my extra thick hair? And how is it that we are trying to conform our bodies whether you're in an Asian body like mine or in a white body or a black body, like how are we trying to conform ourselves into this? I want to put this in like giant neon air quotes, is like the ideal beauty standard, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's been the big problem with the beauty industry.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to create these ideals and perpetuate these ideals. You know, TV, movies, all the media, magazines. Oh my gosh, they're just the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no ideal. There is no one. And I'd like to think we are really evolving from that very narrow lens of beauty, particularly I think in America. I think probably in other parts of the world, maybe it's been different. Maybe they have their own version of the ideal beauty, but I just work with people's texture.
Yeah.
I don't do blowouts. I used to, like everyone wanted their hair like straight or blown out or flat ironed or whatever the current trend was, because it wasn't professional to have curly hair and all of these like horrible messages.
How much racism is in that statement? It's not professional to have curly hair.
It's just awful. And I just refuse to do that kind of work. And it even says on my website and on anything, like, I work with your natural texture. I do hand drying. So I'm not going to manipulate your texture into something it's not. One thing I was taught at an early age in my career was never tell a client, oh my God, your hair is just so thick, or your hair is so thin. Like, you don't shame people for their hair. You don't say, oh, your hair's so thick, this is just going to be a lot of work for me. This is a big highlight. God, you're really making my job hard. Like, you don't complain to the client about their hair. But I would hear people doing it all the time. And I don't know why I don't know why they would do that to people, but they did. And I'm like, all the hair is good. all the hair is good. And helping people find a style that works for their hair type, I think, is just the most important part.
Yeah.
Because you got thick hair, well, let's choose a style that's appropriate for you. And you don't have to tell somebody, oh, now I have to thin out your hair. But do you want your hair to lay a certain way? Do you want it to have more movement? If you want it to bring out some more wave, then we'll carve out some of this weight and it'll move more. But not like, oh, your hair's too thick, automatically we have to thin it out. Mm-hmm. It's more like, how do you want it to flow? How do you want to feel in your hair? Yeah. And if you've got somebody who's like finer hair, thinner hair, maybe they need a stronger shape because they want their hair to feel thicker. So you just guide people to giving them the best look. Not what I think is the best look, but like what's going to make them feel good about their hair. Even as we unravel these narratives of like, well, my hair's thin, it's bad. It's still there, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that when they look at their hair, they're like, yeah, look, I like it looks good. And so they can continue to build that positive relationship with their hair. And slowly that voice becomes less loud, more quiet, telling you like your hair's not right, your hair's not good enough. But yeah, it's been a real problem in our world, our industry of this ideal beauty. And it's just so false. There is no ideal beauty in this world. It's very vast.
Absolutely. And, you know, reflecting back on those experiences of like being told my hair is too thick and I have to thin it out now, like I would say that actually the worst perpetrators of having that mentality and not accepting my hair for what it is have been actually like other Korean hairdressers. And so it's just interesting to think about like we've internalized this ideal standard of beauty so much that we are now projecting onto our clients what we think they need instead of actually just sitting down and listening to that person. Because other than a very, very short period of my life where I had short hair, like I've always had long hair. I've always wanted long hair. This is the longest it's ever been now, and it's come from just brushing it and taking care of it and adding natural oils. I put a little bit of argan oil like after a shower, and you know, just being in right relationship with my hair, and like lo and behold, it's doing the thing that I wanted it to do with way less intervention, you know. And so I get really curious, like thinking about this hair journey as like a metaphor of like what happens when we get out of our own way. Like what happens when we stop trying to like manipulate so much and just allow that whatever it is, whether it's your business, whether it's relationships, whether it's your relationship to beauty, you know, like these sort of bigger picture type things, what happens when you get out of your own way and stop trying to manipulate shit?
I mean, oftentimes people are manipulating their hair texture in such a way, but then they're still not actually happy with it.
Yeah.
All that manipulation, chemicals, hot tools, then degrades the integrity of the hair, and then they're not happy with the hair like being damaged or whatever. So it's like, if you can embrace and, like you said, get in the right relationship with your hair texture, and you'll be a lot happier. But nobody's taught us those things.
Yeah.
Like you said, they've taught us this ideal beauty that's not possible.
Yeah.
And it puts us into a constant fight with ourselves. And that's the big thing that needs to be broken down, torn apart.
Well, I feel like we have traversed so much ground. We were able to touch in on slowness, how capitalism has driven so many of these things, how racism has driven so many of these things, how actually like a lot of the medicine that you were sharing with the world is about lowest effective dose and about just accepting who you are, whether it's your hair texture or really any aspect of you. Curious, is there anything else you feel like it's like you're dying to share before we closing thoughts, I suppose?
No, I guess I do just want to see more people getting into radical self-acceptance, creating more self-sovereignty, however that is, in your beauty routine or in your career, how you live your life, how you love yourself, how you raise your children, all the ways. Being gentle to yourself, being gentle to others.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for spending all this time with me today and sharing your wisdom. And I really honestly think that your work is so needed. There's a lot of healing that many of us need to have around hair. Like, it sounds kind of like a funny thing to say out loud, but like, it is so nourishing to have a conversation with somebody who understands these deeper layers and these deeper like threads that underlie this relationship that we have with a big part of our body. So thank you. And
thank you for having me.
yeah. And please share, how can people find you in the world and on the web? And will you be sharing some of your herbal things sometime soon? Because I would like to be a part of that wait list.
Yes, so I do in-person services in Portland. I'm not commuting to San Francisco anymore. I was doing that for a while, but now I'm just in my slowness and my, really rooting into Portland. I've settled in and I do in person, but I also do online consults. Right now, those online consults are based in if you want to learn about herbal hair care. But I'm also working on expanding that online offering to, don't, hold me to this, but to maybe more in-depth sessions, if you want to call it coaching or like therapy, for people to work through some of their negative beauty narratives, or maybe needing some guidance in unfolding some of that. I'm starting to think about how I can make that offering available to people who can't come in or, live in another state, have a hairdresser there. They don't necessarily need a haircut, but they want some guidance and they want someone to see them and hear their story. And
or even mentorship for other people in the hair industry, that would be nice for you.
That too. But right now I'm still pretty low key, and I'm very like one-on-one, and I have Instagram, but as you know, it's mostly just been like my family, and I do my stories. I talk about, more hair stuff in my stories, but I've not been a big poster. But I'm wanting to change that. I'm feeling more regulation in the digital world these days. But yeah, I have my website, which is herbalhairhealer.com. And my Instagram is at Jennifer's Best Life Yet.
Perfect. Well,
Come see me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing and for being here and for being you. And folks, go check out Jennifer.